Hello everybody, my name is Furio Sclano. I am a minister in the Kriya Yoga tradition. I was ordained in 2005 by Roy Eugene Davis, who was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. I am the founder of Centro di Consapevolezza Spirituale in Italy, and we run this Facebook group which is called newsletter Centro di Consapevolezza Spirituale. We publish teaching and inspirational articles every day, and some people who attend the group and read the post asked us a few days ago to make a video with a very general overview of Kriya Yoga. I have therefore decided to please them and to present you a short summary of our spiritual path. As I know, there are also many Americans who read the posts and Google translates them into English, so I thought to do an English dubbed version, which is this one. For those who will watch this dubbed version, I would like to say that my English is understandable, but it's not my first language, so there will certainly be some errors here and there, and my pronunciation may not be perfect. Enjoy this video. I hope I've been useful by doing it. Goodbye everyone. Namaste. Kriya Yoga. Let's start with the definition. Kriya in Sanskrit means to do, to act, and yoga means to unite or to bind together. Kriya Yoga, therefore, means union through action. So, what do we want to unite and how? We need to understand a concept, and I will use an example. Let's imagine we are at the beach with the water of the ocean up to our knees with an empty bottle in our hands. Let's imagine to fill the bottle, to seal it with a cork, and to drop it in the water for a moment. The bottle will obviously sink, but the most important thing to consider is that the water that is inside the bottle will obviously not mix with the water which is outside the bottle. This happens despite the fact that it is identical, despite having the same nature. Now, there is a symbolism in this. The bottle represents our sense of separate existence, the ego. Just as the water inside the bottle has the same nature as the water outside the bottle, so our deepest essence, which on a metaphysical level is referred to as the heart of being, has the same nature as the absolute divine consciousness that permeates and forms everything that exists. Basically, it is a part of it. In fact, our teachings say that our soul is an individualized unit of an omnipresent intelligent consciousness that we conventionally call God. The purpose of the practices of our spiritual path is to realize, that is, to know accurately with experience our true nature. Using the metaphor of the bottle, we can simply say that the purpose of all of our practices is to unscrew the cork. When we unscrew the cork, the water inside the bottle and the water outside the bottle become one again. When we purify our ego to such an extent that we can realize our spiritual nature, we gradually become one with it. Now, the practice of our spiritual path can be summarized in 6 different points. 1. Regular practice of meditation and Kriya Pranayama. 2. Right living that supports the practice. 3. Aspiration and motivation. 4. Study of higher realities. 5. Focus. and 6. God's grace. Now let's look at each of these things in detail. Let's start with meditation. To meditate means to go beyond the thinking mind to a state of relaxed awareness. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the practice of meditation is explained very simply and very well by these 4 Sanskrit terms: Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. We reach Samadhi, Yoga, unity, when we pacify and make dormant, this is the meaning of Nirodha, the wave-like movements of the mind, Vritti, in the individualized consciousness, which is called Chitta in Sanskrit. In a nutshell, how does meditative practice work? When we are able to pacify the waves of thoughts and we reach a state of extreme tranquility and peace, the forces of the soul gradually invade the mental plane and allow the latter to refine itself, and thus we experience higher states of consciousness. When the state of peace and tranquility is permanent or at least sustained, we deal with superconsciousness, Turiya in Sanskrit, the 4th state, different from the states of wakefulness, deep sleep, and sleep with dreams. The state of extreme peace and tranquility produced by Kriya Pranayama and meditative practice in Sanskrit is called Paravasta. Lahiri Mahashaya mentioned this term very often in his teachings transcribed by his disciples. Kriya Pranayama is a breath control technique that progressively magnetizes the spine. Paramahansa Yogananda explained that the constant practice over time of this pranayama burns the seed of karma, refines the nervous system, and allows the experience of higher states of consciousness, functioning as a spiritual accelerator. We teach the technique of Kriya Pranayama to seriously motivated people during a ceremony we call initiation. This part with us of Centro di Consapevolezza Spirituale, which means Spiritual Awareness Center, is very simple. We ask people to meditate regularly for a few months and to study seriously what we teach, and after a few months, if people have attended our meetings and practiced meditation regularly, they can ask to be initiated into Kriya Yoga. We do not do online initiations. The initiation ceremony is infused with a certain sacredness, and so we prefer to do initiations only with our physical presence. Now, about right living. In order for the meditative practice to bear fruit, it must be supported by a proper lifestyle. So I'm talking about right diet, right exercise, right socialization, balance between work and recreation, and so on. Now the topic is too extensive and it cannot be addressed properly now just in a few minutes. So we advise people anyway to have at least a minimal knowledge of Ayurveda, the Indian medical science, in order to understand what their basic mind-body constitution can be and, as a consequence, to be able to intelligently choose behaviors, foods, activities, and so on, in order to have a life as balanced as possible. There is a very nice sentence that Paramahansa Yogananda used to pronounce, which is plain living and high thinking. Let's go on. Now we have to talk about aspiration and motivation. In order to experience a satisfying spiritual growth, we have to work for a long time, and it is difficult for any of us to maintain this commitment to God and to ourselves if we are not seriously motivated. I once confronted Mr. Davis on this subject, and my teacher confirmed that motivation essentially has to come from within. You know, life doesn't make much sense if we don't spend at least some of our time figuring out who we are, where we come from, why we are here, and all of these things. When I started the spiritual path many years ago, my motivation was rational. I asked myself these questions and I looked for answers. After a while, I realized that I had to look for them within myself and not outside. My experience is this. When we manage to create within ourselves the right motivation, and we sincerely aspire to grow spiritually and to understand the reality of God, by putting this search in first place in order of importance in life, a whole series of mechanisms of apparent serendipity are set in motion that make wonderful happenings possible. Those who do what I have just said will, in time, understand for themselves what I'm talking about. You don't have to believe just my words. Just try and you will see what happens. Now, about study of higher realities. You know, studying is useful because it makes us understand, at least in theory, something about higher realities. Theoretical study cannot replace a real spiritual realization, but often it anticipates it. Now, this is a cliché, but it makes sense. This is a sentence that manifested itself in my mind many years ago while I was practicing meditation. Everyone can write something, but not everyone has something useful to write. As a general rule, we recommend that we select our readings very carefully. When we read too much without making any kind of discernment, we accumulate a whole series of theoretical notions that in the medium and long term they do not enrich us but only contribute to confusion. The key word, in our opinion, is selection. This is very important, I think. About focus. Why focus? Once I heard from a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda this sentence. In order to enter a room, we cannot pass simultaneously through several doors. You know, there are many spiritual paths in the world, and some of them are certainly good ones. I believe it is appropriate, anyway, to make choices. When we practice the teachings of a spiritual path such as ours, over time we enter a specific channel of energy. Now, we should not think of the spiritual masters of our tradition as saints who sit on a throne in heaven 24 hours a day watching what we do and what we don't do, because such a way of thinking, in my opinion, would be fully delusional. It is true, anyway, that by sincerely practicing the teachings of our path in a focused way, we enter into a very specific energetic flow of grace, and we can only maintain attunement with that energetic flow through focus and the form of spiritual monogamy. I really think that. It is worth remembering that our spiritual evolution depends on the level of our consciousness, not on how many things we know or we think we know. This is what we honestly think, and this is the concept that we usually spread. The last part is the most important one. We are talking about God's grace. You know, God's grace is the most important thing. Paramahansa Yogananda said that the grace of God and the Masters is 75% influential in terms of our spiritual evolution. Although the percentage should not be taken literally, the concept is clear. God's grace does most of the work. Mr. Davis described grace as the power of God's Spirit moving through man to regenerate and transform him. He wrote this in a book many years ago. Now, it is difficult to explain exactly what grace is. We can grasp it vaguely, but we can never fully understand it with the mind. Grace of God, obviously, is a conventional name. In Christianity, for example, I believe it is often referred to as divine providence. The psychologist Jung spoke of synchronicity, but I think that synchronicity is simply one of the many ways in which grace works. Now, my guru Roy Eugene Davis often said there is a benevolent power that nurtures the universe and we can learn to cooperate with it. Thanks to my master teachings, I have come to understand and I have realized through experience that this is indeed the case. I don't just believe it by faith anymore. I have seen the effects of God's grace actions. And it happened on so many occasions in my life that I can no longer have doubts about that. And I don't believe simply in the so-called coincidences, even if Einstein, for example, jokingly said that coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. The universe is permeated by an intelligent force of evolution which has very precise purposes and tends to support in a positive way anyone who believes in its work, is receptive to its actions, and is committed to support it by becoming a pure channel through which it can work. It is a benevolent and intelligent force that acts in unfathomable ways. It manages and enables important encounters, harmonizes situations, corrects mistakes, and does many other things. It has a very long-term vision. I have understood this through experience and observation. So, the question arises spontaneously, how can we be receptive to grace? My experience and my current understanding of these matters point me to two important things. One, I think that the main purpose of our existence on this plane, on this world, is to realize, so I repeat, to realize means to know with experience, our spiritual nature. When we conform attitudes and behaviors in life to this goal, we open the door to grace, which by its nature passes through them, because grace passes through open doors. At that moment, grace cannot fail to provide support, simply because providing support is the reason for its existence. It cannot do anything else, and it exists for that purpose. And two, I think that believing in grace helps keeping the doors open. There are three types of laws in the universe. We have physical laws, mental laws, and spiritual laws. Now, physical laws are almost always easily observable. If I put my hand on the kitchen burner with the flame on, I get burned. These laws are based on action and reaction, cause and effect. Mental laws work in the same way, but the effects are more difficult to observe and can be diluted over time. In general, modern metaphysics says that our prevailing mental and consciousness states tend to draw in our lives experiences and circumstances. As it is within, so it is without, or if you prefer, our outer experiences and circumstances are a projection of our inner states of mind and consciousness. Spiritual laws are different. They are not based on the same mechanism. There is no action and reaction. Grace is the spiritual law. It is given freely only according to the receptivity we possess to its actions. It does not have a meritocratic mechanism. Its actions are not the effect of a cause. So, if this is so, why does believing in grace attract it? I don't think it really attracts it, but I do believe that on a mental level it makes us more receptive. We can use mental laws to predispose our minds to be more receptive to the actions of grace. I remember Roy Eugene Davis once telling me, thinking of yourself as an enlightened being cannot really enlighten you, but it can prepare your body and your mind for that kind of experience. You know, I have made mistakes in my life and I have not always been as disciplined as I should have been, but I have always had the goal of realizing God. I have always believed it as something possible. I have remained focused. I have done my best by engaging in my spiritual practices, and I strongly believe in divine grace and in its workings. By virtue of these behaviors, I have been able to observe the work that grace has done in my life over the years. I know that I have the support of this subtle, intelligent, omnipresent force, and I believe that anyone can experience it. Now, I hope I've been effective in giving you a general overview of what our spiritual path is. As you can see, on our Facebook group we post articles daily so that you can be inspired. We do that to give you something useful to read. So we encourage all of you to take advantage of this service that we do for you for free. If any of you don't understand Italian, which I think I'm talking about most of English or American people, I know that Google can translate the post directly into English. So take advantage of this service. The articles of Mr. Davis, our teacher, are sometimes challenging to read, but I assure you that they can be extremely useful and very clear. Roy Eugene Davis was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, and he enlightened our lives with his teachings. We will always be grateful to him for this, and we do our best to demonstrate our gratitude to him and to the masters of the Kriya Yoga path by carrying on the tradition of Kriya Yoga with commitment. As I said before, I am an ordained minister in the Kriya Yoga tradition. I was ordained by Roy Eugene Davis, and along with my friend Manuela Laiacona, also an ordained minister, we present seminars online and now we say in presence. In my country, I think in English is the same, we say in the same way. In presence, it means physically, when we are physically there. Now we have also plans to open a permanent meditation center in the near future in Turin, Italy. We encourage you, as I said before, to read the post, also to be informed regularly about our activities. We are also available to present seminars in English on request. For now, we can do that only online, and we hope in the future to be able to do that also in presence. Okay? Thanks for listening and for watching. Goodbye and namaste.